Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, flung far and wide across Australia, across the world. Hello, all you creatures out in the fashionable bars of the galaxy, where, as we know, these awards are always streamed live, much to the delight of every alien. These awards. What are these awards? These are the Comic Arts Australia Awards, or the awards which recognise excellence in the Australian comic book arts in the previous calendar year, so for 2020. For a number of years, these annual awards were known as the Ledger Awards, but with this year's awards, the awards have changed hands. They've been organised for a long time by Gary Challoner and Tim McEwen, and this year Bruce Mutard has taken over those long organisational reins. Thanks, Bruce. And the awards have also had a name change. So from the Ledger Awards to the Comic Arts Australia Awards. The call of the little Australian raven, surely. I want to proudly acknowledge that we are presenting these awards tonight. Certainly I am where I am, and if you're watching it somewhere on Australia, you're watching them on Aboriginal country. This land, now known as Australia, is all of it Aboriginal country. Always has been, always will be. And for people like us who are making and reading in an art form that turns time into space, this is crucial. So Australia is Aboriginal country, always has been and always will be. So place plus time, or place times time, or place to the power of time, which is comics. So I stand tonight on Wurundjeri country in Melbourne, better known as Naarm, which is a meeting point for the Kulin nations. But tonight presenters will be coming to you from across many time zones, different time zones, all the different time zones, and all of those different time zones cover Aboriginal country. So the Comics Arts Awards Australia pay respects to Aboriginal elders, past, present, and future, who for 100,000 years, for forever, have danced and sung and drawn and spoken and lived a living understanding of this country. Okay, so the awards, the cars, also have an excellent sponsors without whom which they could not happen. And so we shout out to Kapow, who are helping to stream us tonight, Neighbourhood Press, Media Arts Lawyers, Impact Comics, Jeffries Printing, Comics Oz, PCAF, the Perth Comics Arts Festival, and the ACA, Australian Cartoonists Association. So thank you to all of them who help us. My name is Bernard Callio. It's a great honour and a great joy to MC these awards tonight. This is our second online version of this ceremony, thanks to COVID. And though I'm in Melbourne, I do think of tonight's ceremony as being based in Perth, because it is planned to coincide with, and in fact, after much dancing on the dance floor, has coincided with PCAF, the Perth Comics Arts Festival. So yesterday there was an opening of an exhibition called Message in a Bottle, which I think is a perfect title for an exhibition about comics and sculpture. And there's a market day this Sunday. Okay, so these awards. The recently renamed Comic Arts Australia Awards, they recognise excellence in comics making and publishing and supporting in Australia. These awards have an important function. They bring together all the comics that have been published in Australia over the previous year. So in this case, from January the 1st to December the 31st in the year 2020. This is our 2020 vision year. And they're important because they're the only place, the only being, the only thing, the only structure that does that. that recognises all of those works at the same moment. This is, I don't know if you've checked recently, but it's a big place, a big country, and there are lots of comic book makers and comic book making groups spread across it. And so these awards allow every year the judges to cast their eyes across as many comics as are known to have been published or produced or published elsewhere, but with Australian contributions. And it's time to talk about the judges. So let's give a huzzah to those remarkable people who have cast their critical, creative, and loving eyes over 210 comics produced in the 2020 calendar year. So let's shout out to them. Marcello Baez from New South Wales, Maria Pena from Queensland and New Victoria, so she sort of goes in both, Antonio Didio in the ACT, Deborah Dudek, WA, Jason Franks, hello Jason, from Victoria, and Amy Maynard from South Australia. Hello, Amy. So these 6 people have sifted through these 210 creations, out of that first reading, a short list gets produced, and this short list can still be perused on the website, which still goes by the name of ledgerawards.com. And this year, 17 books have been selected from those 210, which across those judges, that group, that all the judges believe that each of these books were worthy of the gold ledger, the top gong. And then there's a voting system amongst the judges to sort them into gold, silver, and bronze categories. So we'll be hearing of those winners, and we will also be hearing, as in previous years, about the awarding of a platinum ledger, which is for outstanding contributions to Australian comics culture, and I will present that. And then Daniel Best, a historian of Australian comics, will present this year's Ledgers of Honour. So that title has been retained for the Ledgers of Honour, and that's our equivalent of a Lifetime Achievement Award to recognise great Australian comic book people of the past. So that's the architecture of the night. So on with the show. I'd like to invite Bruce Mutard, an honorary Western Australian, and the person who has taken the vast job of coordinating the awards, to present our bronze winners for tonight. Bruce.
And good evening to Australia, and thank you so much, Bernard, for that awesome introduction and explaining all about what these awards are. So we'll get straight into the Bronze Awards for 2020. I'll read them out one by one, and you'll see either an acceptance speech or I will read out one for each one. So the first Bronze Award for this year is the Suicide Squad, Bad Blood by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. Here's your lovely award. That says it's awesome. And Tom wrote a acceptance in. He says, I want to say a huge thanks to everyone involved in the Comic Arts Awards and to the judges for recognising our Suicide Squad today. This was a real passion project for everyone on our team. Creating so many new characters for DC was daunting, but we couldn't be happier with the support we received from DC Comics to create such a diverse and GLAAD or GLAAD award-nominated team. He also wants to say thanks and congratulations to my brother in comics, Bruno Redondo, for his brilliance and hard work, but also to other artists and contributors to the series, Daniel Zampera, Adriano Lucas, Juan Albaran, and Wes Abbott. So that's number one. Exciting award. That's for you. Then, second Bronze Award for 2020 is Why Black Lives Matter Resonates with Black People All Over the World by Claudia Chinea Acole. And so let's hear from her now.
Hey Internet, I'm Claudia Chinea Acole. I'm speaking to you today from mid-lockdown Sydney, specifically Wongal country. So I'd immediately like to thank the Comic Arts Awards of Australia for giving me an excuse to change out of my pyjamas. In general though, I'm recording this video to express my immeasurable thanks to the Comic Arts Awards of Australia for awarding my comic a gold prize in this year's awards. That comic being Why Black Lives Matter Resonates with Black People All Over the World, an open letter to Australians. I have a really long list of people to thank for both supporting this comic and for supporting me in the process of creating it. I'd first and foremost like to thank Holland Singleton, my editor from Going Down Swinging. Holland originally commissioned me to make a really small short comic, and I originally had plans to make a 4 to 6 panel comic, and then in May 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, and the uprising that followed in the USA and abroad, I decided to change the subject matter of the comic that I wanted to make by June 2020. And so this 4 to 6 panel short comic commission turned into this monstrous, what ended up being a 52-page comic, and Holland was incredibly supportive throughout, totally understood, and kept pushing back the deadline while I made this comic in a kind of frenzied 8-week period where I just sat in my room and wrote and drew and wrote and drew and wrote and drew every day for that 8-week period. So yeah, I'm super thankful for Going Down Swinging, both for being a platform for my work and for being so understanding in the process of me making it. On that front, I'd also like to thank my sister for just being there for that whole 8-week period where I was just in a flood of self-doubt and kind of being swept by this wave of emotion consisting of rage and frustration, and kind of being there to poke me in the forehead when I would slunk into her room and say I couldn't do it. Not only for that, but she also traced the final title pages for me because I didn't have time to do them myself. So thanks. Next, I'd like to thank every single person who bought a charity zine of this comic. So GDS was also lovely in both letting the comic be published online on their platform, but also allowing me to self-publish a charity zine, which is one of these bad boys, a printed version. 60% of the profits for those went to the Aboriginal Legal Service here in Australia, in New South Wales and ACT, and to US-based bail funds, mutual aid funds, and racial justice organizations. So in the first sweep of sales, and with an injection of my own donations, we were able to donate $1,400 to Aboriginal Legal Service, New South Wales and ACT, and $1,400 Australian dollars to those US-based bail funds, mutual aid funds, and racial justice orgs aforementioned. So yeah, the outpouring of support, the willingness to pay the price for this work so that I could donate such a substantial amount to charity was awesome. And yeah, it was just incredibly humbling and filled my cold dead heart with joy. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Ryan Pemberton for approaching me to create an audio version of this comic, which is a live reading of it for a kind of 2-part 52-minute special episode of All the Best on FBI Radio. So Ryan was as dedicated as I was to getting it right and creating a quality piece of work that kind of lived up to the subject matter that is discussed in the comic. But yeah, overall, speaking of which, this comic was also something that I personally consider very entry-level kind of discussion of racial injustice and police brutality and anti-blackness and white supremacy. And I lamented a lot about how I was frustrated with Australia seemingly being 10, 20 years behind on those kinds of discussions, especially related to the original movement in the USA, but then especially so related to how it's been adopted in Australia. So yeah, the original motivation for this comic kind of came out of this place of frustration and from misunderstandings of how entrenched white supremacy is in the systems of our society, not just in the USA, but here in Australia and in several other colonized nations across the globe. So it was difficult to me to discuss this matter in a kind of paint-by-numbers manner and to use my own personal experience, especially because none of what was happening was about me. I just understood as a storyteller how much non-fiction stories about real people can help others empathize and understand things that they otherwise may not have. It was also difficult for me to create this work because I didn't want it to come off as an endorsement of Black Lives Matter, the organization, when it's really about Black Lives Matter, the movement, and how it reached the shores of other countries and resonated in the hearts of Black people in other countries way before this kind of media explosion came in 2020. So yeah, it's a lot. But overall, in general, I'm honored to receive this award. I'm thankful to receive this award, and I'm thankful for everyone who has read this comic. And if even one person has gained clarity on how white supremacy and anti-blackness is pervasive in the lives of Black people everywhere, then I've achieved my goal. So thank you. Thank you, 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 goodbye.
Isn't that wonderful? Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia, for that. Okay, the next Bronze Award for the 2020 is Landing with Wings by Trace Bella.
Hello. I really want to thank you for this award. And I got to thank the beautiful team at Helen and Unwin, especially Erica Wagner and Elise Jones for a huge amount of work behind the scenes to make a book, and takes a team. And also this beautiful country, Jara country, that inspires my work, and countless people that put in so many ways. And thanks to the Ledger folk for encouraging cartoon making. Keep on making cartoons. We love them. Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Trace. Okay, the fourth bronze for this year's awards is to Action Tank, Book 2 by Mike Barry.
Thank you very much. And look, thank you for having me at tonight's special Sydney satellite red carpet event for the Comic Arts Awards. It's, as you can see behind me, the vibe is really, hang on. Right, as you can see behind me, the red carpet is just going off. So yeah, very exciting stuff. Look, I wanted to say thank you for this recognition. Thank you to the judges. Thank you to anyone who's ever read Action Tank. I do really appreciate it. And look, thank you to all the awesome Aussie comic makers out there. Some of you were shortlisted, some of you have actually taken home a prize tonight, and some of you are yet to be recognised. But I really appreciate what you're doing. I know how hard it is to make comics. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of brain power, but please keep going. I know there's a lot of amazing talent out there that's just getting started, so I can't wait to read what you make. You inspire me, and I hope that I can inspire you too. Thank you again for this award. Really do appreciate it.
If only we could have had an actual red carpet as I had planned. But nevertheless, next year we can live in hope. Okay, the fifth And final bronze for this year's awards is The Grot by Pat Grant and his confrere Beyond McCabe.
Hey everybody. Thanks so much for this award. I've been working on this book for years and years and years and years. Nearly killed me, so it's really nice to receive a little bit of recognition for the project. Should say thanks particularly to Finn McCabe for helping me get this sucker over the line, and to all of my friends in the community of comics makers in Australia that helped me get this, that really supported me over the time that I worked on this project. That's all I got. Sorry we all couldn't be there in person. Congratulations to everyone else who got an award tonight, and particularly those who got the gold ledgers for the year. Great stuff, everybody. Thank you so much. See ya.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Awesome as always. Okay, that's the list of bronze. We'll hand pass back to Bernard.
I don't think that the awards condone in any way the driving of a car while making an acceptance speech. But yes, absolutely, Bruce. I agree with you. Congratulations to Claudia and to Tom, to Pat and to Finn, his watercolorist and sidecar person, Trace and Mike, all each and every one of those remarkable, superb, thrilling comics. So yeah, well done. So I have now got the, it's not a ball, is it? It's a bottle of ink. I've got the bottle of ink, and now I'm throwing it back to you, Bruce, to say, and who, Bruce, are the silver award winners for this year?
Yes. Right. Okay. Right. Now I've caught the silver awards. They've been dropped by Bernard in the form of a bottle of ink, and inside were the silver winners for this year. So the first one for is going to Under Earth by Chris Gooch. And Chris has also sent in or written a acceptance speech for me to read out. So he says, "Thank you for choosing my book. It's really lovely for it to get an award like this. I'd like to thank my family, Top Shelf, the publisher, Vic Arts for some grant money, everyone from the Comic Arts Workshop and Squishface, and anyone who bought a copy or gave me feedback on the book." So thank you so much, Chris, for that. The second award for silver for 2021 goes to Home Time Volume 2, Beyond the Weaving by Campbell White. And Campbell also had to write a acceptance speech for me to read out, and so I'll do that now. He said, "Thanks so much for this incredible honour. Home Time has been an enormous part of my creative life, taking about 13 years to bring into the world, and it's strange and bittersweet to be on the other side of it all. The books were my attempt at pulling together the strange, confusing and wonderful experience of growing up on this land. It fills my heart with joy when I hear it has found pockets of resonance in school libraries and young readers. It would not have been possible without the collaboration of Elizabeth Marufo and our son Nazario White and our family. Campbell also thanks all those who have supported the work in various ways over the years, because there are far too many to mention, including the many collaborators who also helped push the work across the line. And he also thanks the Australian comics community for seeing some merit in my weird scrawlings, and it's a real honour. So, thank you so much, Campbell. Awesome pair of books, those. I highly recommend that you can read them. So again, I'm going to get this quill and hand pass it over back to Bernard.
Yes. Thanks, Bruce. I've got a quill. It's full of ink, and yes, I'd like to add my congratulations to Chris and to Campbell. Love both of those books, and yeah, it's great that that Top Shelf published those and the Grot. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, and now the red carpet quivers slightly in anticipation, and now the gold, So Bruce, I want you to have this pot of gold ink. Are we extending this too far? Anyway, I'm going to this pot of gold ink, and for the goldest work produced in 2020. The suspense is getting very. There you go.
Oh, I've just been covered in gold like that. What's his name? Targaryen in Game of Thrones. The crown. No, it's not quite. All right, the gold winner for last year. There's just the one this year, and it's an exciting one. And wait for it. It is Black Magic Volume 3 Extension by Nicola Scott and Greg Rooker. Over to you, Nicola.
Hi, Ledger Awards. Greetings from lockdown New South Wales, where life is getting really damn boring. But I have been perked up by this news that Black Magic just won the Gold Ledger. Thank you very, very much. I wish I could be there in Perth with you in person. To thank you all, to thank the judges, and to thank Bruce for organising this event and for letting me know how exciting. Black Magic is a book that's really sort of near and dear to our hearts. Chiara Arena, who's my colour assistant, and I are both Australian, and we're very proud to have our work sort of distributed around the world, and we're really grateful that people have continued to enjoy the series. Our Volume 3 edition has been very exciting to produce and very exciting to sort of progress the story of our lead characters. Volume 3 kind of marks our halfway point in the story that we're telling, which will probably take another few years to get the rest of it out, because it's all pretty slow going with the amount of work that Greg has on and that I have on and blah, blah, blah. But thank you very, very much, because being acknowledged by our sort of local Australian peer group is really important. That to me, as a local creator, that our work is sort of getting recognised and acknowledged by all of our local peer groups and the people that, we know and that we're sort of building relationships with, and, that we're all in this sort of crazy business together. So thank you very much. We're incredibly grateful here at Team Black Magic. Thank you.
And that's wonderful, Nicola. Thank you. It should be noted also that Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Black Magic both picked up silver ledgers in the past. So 2 silvers and a gold. If you were an Olympic swimmer, I'm sure you'd be very happy with that. It's an outstanding effort. Okay, we're heading over back to Bernard, who's going to bring up and talk about the winner of this, the Platinum for 2021. Over to you, Bernard.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, congratulations, Nicola and Chiara. And yeah, it's Black Magic is very beautiful and creepy and weird and eerie, and it's a great thing. And I like that description of this crazy business that we are involved in. Okay, so let's go to the Platinum Award winner for this year. The Platinum Award recognises an individual or organisation who's contributed to the development of Australian comics culture. So last year, this award was won by the Comic Arts Workshop, which is a project that fosters a conversation amongst comic book makers who are working on graphic novels, a graphic novel project each. And this year, actually, we've seen, graduates of core of the Comics Arts Workshop, or people who've come through Comics Arts Workshop, well represented in the winners tonight. So this year's Platinum Award, the winner of the 2020 Platinum Award, is another organisation, although this time it is a publishing organisation. So. Congratulations to the Platinum winner for this year, Glom Press. Glom Press is a publisher based in a sharehouse in Melbourne, Naarm, and they use a risograph printer to produce their zines and prints. They aim to fill a gap in the Australian publishing industry between zines and graphic novels and provide opportunities for emerging and established creators to experiment and hone their craft. And Glom Press are doing this admirably, and they've got quite a back catalogue to their name, and that name is Glom Press. Glom Press is run by Michael Hawkins, Mark Pearson, Bailey Sharp, and Ben Dewars, and we say congratulations to them, and we have an acceptance speech from them. Huzzah!
Thank you. Wow, thanks for that introduction. We are Glom Press. We're coming to you pre-recorded from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, whose sovereignty was never ceded. This is...
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hi, I'm Ben.
I'm Bailey.
I'm Michael.
We want to acknowledge the work that we've done has kind of always been built out of a kind of community and teamwork and stuff, and so if it is a platinum award, it is a platinum for the people.
Yeah, so in addition to the comics community and the Rizzo community in general, we'd like to thank particularly the artists that Glom Press has published. Apart from ourselves, of course, that would be Edie Bush, Leonie Briley, Mandy Ord, Meng Shung Lee, Eloise Grills, Merv Hears, Mira Schlossberg, Caroline Wilds, Rachel Ang, and Aaron Billings. If you hadn't made the books, we wouldn't be able to publish the books, and if there wasn't such an array of talent to draw on, we probably wouldn't bother with publishing the books in the first place.
We'd also like to thank the stores that stock our books, and the grant-giving bodies that gave us the money to make the books, and the people who helped us get the grants. So especially Liz McFarlane, Ronnie Scott, Pat Grant, and Gabe Clark. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so as a press, I mean, we were going to probably pack it in soon, but I guess being the recipients of this award encourages us to keep going. Yeah, we've got future plans. We've got a book coming out soon that I'm sure we will be dropping details about around this time, and probably another one or two by the end of the year. And I think we're going to keep going and trying to innovate the forms that we're working in as the artists innovate their work, and always with the ethos of that community building and building the Australian comics community in particular.
Cool. Thanks again.
Thanks for the award.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good on you, Glom Press. Thank you for that think tank. That was very nice, Michael, and all of you. And so, finally, we are at the final award of the night, which has indeed retained the name Ledger in its title. So this is the Ledger, or indeed Ledgers of Honour. And so I invite Australian comics historian Daniel Best to join us from South Australia to present these two ledgers.
Thank you very much for that, Bernard. Caught me in the mid-drink. Greetings to everyone in Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, and wherever you may be all over the country and possibly all over the world. I'd like to think you're all over the world. I'm coming to you tonight from downtown Adelaide, and I'd like to acknowledge that the traditional owners of this land from which we speak is the Kaurna people. And I'd also like to acknowledge the people who nominate this award, this Ledger of Honour, that we do not bestow lightly upon anyone. And that being Graham Cliff, a writer of note, Jeremy McPherson, who can do anything he wants, Matt Emery, Mick Stone, if you don't know who Mick is, I can't help you, and Dr. Kevin Patrick, and of course the one person who herds all of us cats into one place to get us all to get onto the one page on this, Nat Carmichael. That all being done, it is my pleasure now to be with you tonight to induct the latest members into the Ledger Hall of Fame. And those members are June Mendoza and Hart Amos. Now, I was raised never, ever to ask a woman her true age. So let's just say that June Mendoza was born sometime in the mid-1920s in Melbourne, I mean, if you want to look it up, you can. I wouldn't. And she's still with us. And she's well into an age which a lot of people would love to reach. Let's just put it that way. June's interest in art began when she was 12. She was born into an artistic family. She was sketching and drawing by 12, and she started a formal art education at the age of 14. It didn't take her long before she was soon illustrating the likes of pulp book covers, magazines. She was doing magazine illustrations, children's books, and even more. Now, you're going to have to bear with me here. She began her career in the comic book industry in Australia in the mid-1940s when she took over the artistic duties of Devil Doom. Now, Devil Doom was running in Ken Murray's magazine, Man Jr., which was one of those magazines that was aimed at, let's just say, the male of the species. And in total, she illustrated 9 4-page stories. And after that, she did a comic book. Well, she did 6 pages in issue 15 of Gem, which was published by Frank Johnson. Now, in total, she only drew 42 pages for comic books in this country. That may have you asking right now, why are we inducting June Mendoza? And the reason being is because of what she did after she left the Australian comic book industry. June moved to England at the end of the 40s, as many people did in that post-World War II. And she found herself employed drawing strips in a weekly title. And the title was called Girl. And Girl was one of those magazines that was the equivalent of Beano and magazines like that. It was aimed at young children. And she was drawing on a regular basis. Now, that makes her one of the first Australian comic book artists, certainly the first Australian woman to go overseas and break into an overseas market on a regular basis. She kept drawing. She paved the way for anyone, any number of people who work overseas, was June Mendoza. But along with her comic book work, June became a fine art. She became a fine artist. She was doing commercial work at the same time. She was also acting on the East End. June could do anything she really wanted to. But her fine arts is where she excelled. I'm going to read you a list of people. Queen Elizabeth, the Prince of Wales, Diana, Princess of Wales, the Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, the Queen Mother, the Duke of Norfolk, Sir Sean Connery, Samuel Davis Jr., Max Wall, Margaret Thatcher, a handful of Archbishops of Canterbury, Wimbledon champions, Corazon Aquino, and even more. There was Gerald Scarfe, who everyone knows art knows who Gerald Scarfe was. And of course, there was Sir John Gorton. All these people have one thing in common. They all sat for June Mendoza, and they all sat for her in an official capacity. John Gorton, the portrait that June drew, or painted of John Gorton, hangs in the Parliament House. She's the only woman to have been commissioned to paint one of the official portraitures of an ex-Prime Minister of Australia. So June's career, as you can see, went far and wide. She went beyond comic books. She went into art. She became worldwide. She's world known. She became an AO in 1989. She was made an OBE in 2004. She belongs to the Royal Society of Portrait Painters and the Royal Institute of Oil Painters in England. And the latter describe her as being one of our most prolific and highly respected artists and portrait painters. She can now add a Ledger Hall of Fame to her already groaning mantelpiece. Our second recipient tonight is the mighty Hart Amos. Now, I can tell you how old Hart is because, well, men really don't care how old anyone knows. We don't really care who knows how old we are or how young we are. In fact, we take delight in being old and grizzled, and we rejoice in being codgers and coots. Hart was born in Sydney on the 2nd of December 1916. He left school and he settled into a career as a clerical assistant in an advertising department. But his interest in art was starting to foster, and he started to study art at the East Sydney Technological School. When he graduated, unlike his peers, finding work wasn't that easy for Hart. He had to do the hard slog. But Ken Murray, who's a person who should be given rightful recognition at some point for what he did for Australian artists. He grabbed Hart, and after the war, he put Hart illustrating war books, which was good because Hart Amos served in places like Borneo during World War II. So when it came to drawing jungle warfare comic books, Hart knew what he was talking about. So Hart kept doing this, and he kept drawing Australian comic books right up until Ken Murray decided that it was actually cheaper to reprint overseas comic books, American comic books mainly, superhero fare, and sort of get rid of the Australian guys who were costing a bit. He got rid of pretty much everyone, but he did not get rid of Hart Amos. He had Hart touching up panels. He had Hart drawing covers. He had Hart doing one-page gag strips. The covers are particularly interesting because it was here that Hart Amos became one of the first people outside of America. He wasn't the first, but one of, to draw American superheroes, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. He even drew Hopalong Cassidy. He drew all of these. And those covers now on those old KG Murray magazines, Climax, all of these other titles, Superman, Supercomic, overseas collectors and Australian collectors go crazy for them. All you have to do is just say, I've got this one and it's beat to death, but the cover is a Hart Amos cover and it's in good nick, and people just swoop all over it. He was one of the first to draw those icons. And like Drew Mendoza, Hart made a name drawing Devil Dune. In fact, he was one of the ones that took over pretty much as June left off. But unlike June, he remained on the strip for a whopping 23 years. In fact, Ken Murray realised what Hart was doing, was smart enough to take those strips out of Man Jr. and start producing a comic book. One of the few comic books Ken Murray did after he dumped the Australian artists and the Australian content. Devil Doom was one of the few comic books that actually was purely Australian all the way. So for a person who found it hard to break into the industry, by the 1960s, Hart Amos was one of Ken Murray's go-to people. He was drawing covers, he was drawing gag strips, he was drawing interior illustrations. He was across the entire line. He was drawing for the comic books. He was drawing for Man, Cavalcade, Adam, those men magazines. He was even doing stuff for Home and Garden, and that took its toll. Hart had worked furiously, and he'd worked fast, and he'd been doing it for about 25 years. He'd never had a break. One day, he woke up and he found he couldn't draw. The muse had gone. His pen just couldn't do it. So he quit. He stopped. He just stopped right there and then, and he stepped off the pace and he took a long break. Devil Dune continued with him, but when the writer, Carson Gold, passed away, 72, the strip stopped. Hart would have probably thought that his time was up. There was nothing in Australia to do. John Dixon came to his rescue. And John Dixon was drawing Airhawk, and he was doing it as a daily and as a Sunday strip. And he tapped Hart to draw the Sunday strip. And he ran with it. He started drawing in 1970, and he stopped in 1977 when he finally decided to retire. Along the way, he was one of the few that drew that strip and signed his name to it. Generally, it was Airhawk by John Dixon. It was Airhawk by John Dixon and Hart Amos. Sadly, unlike June, Hart left us in 2000. But it didn't matter what job Hart was doing. It could be Devil Dune, it could be a Superman cover, Batman panel, a little touch up here, technical drawing for House and Garden, or he could be drawing cheesecake for one of the Man magazines. Each and every single illustration Hart did was done to an extremely high standard. His line was impeccable, and his superhero covers show, if nothing else, that if Hart had gone to America and broken into that market, and he would have been up there with any of the American artists of that era, of the gold and silver age time. His output for Ken Murray is almost incalculable. We don't know how much he drew because, quite frankly, we still find things. You can pick up pretty much any Ken Murray magazine from the 1950s through to the end of the 1960s, and his name will be in there. That's Hart Amos for you. In summary, I'd like to invite everyone watching this to grab a glass and salute June Mendoza, the pioneer, the person who has made Australian comic books possible and paved the path for women to go into the comic book world overseas, make your mark, and become highly sought after. And hard Amos, the draftsman, the craftsman, the consummate professional. No job was too big, none was too small. They all got the same level of professionalism and care, and a lot of people could learn from that. I say, we salute you, June. We salute you, Hart. Long may people remember your artwork long after we're gone. Thank you very much. Now it's back to Bernard and Bruce for more drinks.
Cheers. Cheers, Daniel. Thank you so much. Always so great to hear about the four people, four fathers, four mothers, or whatever that term is, but people who came before. And both of those artists, June and Hart, both sound remarkable. So great rap. Thank you. And yeah, great that they're in the canon of the Ledgers of Honor. So that concludes the formal or awarding part of the awards tonight. I'm going to hand back, I'm going to hand back to Bruce Mutard now to say a few thank yous, and then I'll see you one more time to say good night. Okay, Bruce?
Okay, and thank you, Bernard. Thank you so much, Daniel, for exceptionally good insight into the lives and art of our Hall of Famers for this year. It's such an illuminating experience to listen to, so thank you so much. Also, a big thank you to Bernard and but mostly for the Glob Press for their awesome Platinum Award. You will be getting your Platinums next week. Okay, they're on the way. They're real. They're engraved. They'll be on your way. Okay, so as part of winding down for this year's awards, I obviously need to thank a lot of people for their efforts in helping to make this possible. There's quite a few people to thank, so I'll just read through my list quickly if I can do it. And so the first thing would be a shout out to Tim McEwen and Gary Challoner for their awesome efforts in setting up the awards many years ago, and for running them for so long. And you know, having run it 1 year, I can well appreciate how much effort it takes, and why you would like to hand the baton on, or as I prefer to call it, the vessel with the pestle that contains the pill with the poison. Yeah, but I will take the poison out. So thank you so much. I hope to live up to your precedent by wearing your shoes. I did spray them before I put them on, so just let you know that. Next, I want to thank all the judges for this year, whom you know now. Bernard has mentioned them. There's a lot of work to sit down and read 210 comics, knowing that you must read them with some alacrity and attention to decide whether they'll make your preliminary shortlist and go on through, and then to go through the process of deciding is quite some effort. Not one to be taken lightly, let's just say that. So that was an astounding effort. Also want to give a thank you to the Platinum Committee, which was headed by Tim McEwen, for their work in sorting out a Platinum for this year. The processes that people send nominations into the award, and then the judges assess those applications. Apparently my volume is down. I'll speak up a little more. The next thing is that that was not an easy task to do. The next thing I want to do is thank to the Ledger of Honor Committee, who Daniel mentioned them all, and they've done an outstanding job as always in trying to pick from a very large cast of potential awardees for the Hall of Fame. Every year, it's not the easiest thing to decide who that will be, but they have their process and they do it so well. and then they do a wonderful contribution to the annual, which I'll introduce in a short while. The next person I want to thank is Chem Stelame, who handles the social media for the Comic Arts Awards. So if you've been following our social media, be it Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, he's been doing all of that on my behalf, which I'm so grateful for, because I'm not the greatest at social media at the best of times. It's one of those slightly arduous processes for me to deal with, and just having someone to pick up the slack and do all that for me is a real blessing. So if you've been enjoying our social media, you have to thank him. He's the man. He's the one who's doing it. Next heartfelt thanks have to go to Nathaniel Hopkins Smith of Kapow for putting this live stream on, particularly in the place of what would have been a lovely live event that was going to be simulcast live via this platform at the same time. But we've, made it all possible to let it run this year. Nathaniel is the lead producer for Kapow and supporting the comic community in Australia, and make sure that you regularly check into the Kapow YouTube channel for small documentaries on local artists. They're also always wonderful. Next, thanks. I also just want to give a broad shout out to the Australian comics community for making the works that enable these awards to exist at all. Being a maker myself, I can well understand the labour and isolation and solitude that you exist in these little bubbles in producing these works that you hope will connect with readers both in the country and around the world. So even if you were submitted one of those 210 and you didn't make the shortlist for this year, much less get the award, remember those on the shortlist were voted as being of gold standard. One of the two of the judges at least voted you in that one, so you've got to take heart from that. My hope is that that you continue to produce your comics, because in the end, putting what you have in here and in here in your heart out there in the world for others to share is what matters most. There are always going to be people who love what you do. The next thing, I have a quick thank to Peter and Mick at the Karrinyup Men's Shed, because they were the ones who constructed these lovely awards for me this year, and along with Michael at Birchwood Trophies for the engravings. So thank you so much for doing that for us. I want to give a big thank you to Stuart Medley for his labour and in the design of the Ledger Annual, or now the Comic Arts Awards Annual, which I would now present here. Here it is for 2021, and guess what? It's a 2-for-1 deal, because if you flip it over, you get last year's Ledger Annual, because as you remember, the awards we ran late in the year, and we didn't get to do this last year, so I decided to put them together as a database, or top to front or back to front, whichever, and that is going to be out now. You can I'll follow our social media and I'll give you details of how to get them off me. I have plenty of them, $5 postage anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, and you can have it, okay? It's all yours. It's 120 pages of all the winners and shortlisted comics and Ledger of Honor awards from both last year and this year's award. So hop to it. This is a good thing. In amongst all of that, you'll also might want to start looking out for these little badges. These badges are going to be appearing on winning comic books around the country, the ones that you just heard about this evening. They hopefully will be stuck upon the books, and when those comic shows get to start running again, be they the pop culture cons or comic festivals like Perth Comic Arts Festival, which is this weekend, or Paper Cuts and so forth, this should be on there, those books, I'd like to think. So all the winners will be getting some of those. And since I mentioned it, if you're in Perth and you're able to come to the Perth Comic Arts Festival this weekend, because our big market day with all our workshops and talks and exhibition is on this weekend on Sunday between 10 and 4 at Edith Cowan University's campus in Mount Lawley. And of course, you can grab one of these off me there. It's free. Just take it. Okay. And then just for a cheap plug, if you wanted to know, I have my awesome Erotics and Comics PhD printed up, ready to buy. And so you can grab one of those off me at the same time. So back to Bernard to conclude our ceremony for 2021.
And one more thanks is due to that list, and that is to you, Bruce Mutard, who has taken on the enormous work of wrangling the Comic Arts Australia Awards. So thank you so much for doing this. This is such an important part of local comics culture. So we thank you from the hearts of our bottoms. These awards are a project of documenting and recognising the work of Australian comic book makers. The awards pay attention and they listen and they respond. And that's a very beautiful thing. So wherever you are in this very mixed up world, be it Brunswick or Broome or Bosnia, we say huzzah for Australia comics, huzzah for the makers, and huzzah for the readers. That's 3 huzzahs, right? So let's do it. Huzzah! 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 Okay, folks. Keep on writing, keep on drawing, keep on reading, and we'll see you at next year's Comic Arts Australia Awards. And we can't wait to see what you make this year. Ah!